Everyone, welcome to the Energy Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Ari Whitten, and today I have with me my good friend, Dr. Susanne Bennett, who is an internationally recognized natural and integrative medicine expert with over 27 years of clinical experience in the fields of allergies, clinical nutrition, methyl genetics, and anti-aging medicine. She's the author of the #1 bestseller, Mighty Mito, which is about mitochondria. And that's actually how I first got to know her, as I read that book and then later met her in person at one of the many conferences we've attended together. And she's also the author of the 7-Day Allergy Makeover, and now, most recently, the Kimchi Diet, which is the subject of today's podcast episode. I also want to mention that Dr. Susanne is the talk show host of Wellness for Life on RadioMD and iHeart Radio, and is devoted to sharing the best health strategies and providing easy to implement tips to improve your life and start feeling better today, the all natural way. So welcome, Dr. Susanne Bennett.
Thank you so much, Ari. Oh, so glad to chat with you about my exciting thing that I'm into right now, which is kimchi.
Yes. This is a long time in the making. We've been trying to make this happen for, I think, like 2 years now. So it's finally, I'm glad that it's finally happening. And I'm glad that it's happening right after, a few months after you released this book, The Kimchi Diet. So
that's right.
You are originally from South Korea. And I know from experience, because one of my best friends in high school was also from South Korea, that one of the traditional foods over there is kimchi. And when I was in high school and I would hang out at my buddy's house, I thought kimchi was the most disgusting thing in the world. And I was like horrified with it. He and his parents used to have these giant, huge glass jars of kimchi in the fridge. And I was like, my God, that looks disgusting.
Did you try it?
No, I was afraid to try it. But now, fortunately, I've become more worldly, and I've also become more well-read on the almost innumerable health benefits of kimchi. And thanks in part, most recently, to your book, which educated me even further on the subject, I now eat kimchi probably 3 or 4 times a week. So I now look back on it and wish I would have got started back then when I had the opportunity in high school. But having said all that, what, besides, eating this food traditionally, growing up, what got you so interested in the subject and made you want to write a book about it?
Thanks so much, Ari. Oh, that must have been amazing. Being exposed to a different culture like that at such a young age. I grew up in Korea. I was there until I was 12 years old. And I never thought I was going to write about kimchi. I mean, I'm a clinician, and I knew about fermented foods. And of course, I ate it since, my grandma started me on kimchi actually when I was 4 months old.
Wow. Super,
super young. And I don't remember that part, but what I was told was that she gave me kimchi juice a little bit at a time, about 4 months old, when most babies are given soft foods. And part of the reason, I think, was because I was not breastfed. My mother could not breastfeed. That was that's what she told, me, that I was not a non-breastfed baby. And now, as a grown-up, I know why. I don't know if you understand what a tongue tie is, but anyway.
Actually, my son, my firstborn, had a severe tongue tie. So yes, I have a lot of experience with it, and it's pretty brutal to deal with. We had to get a laser surgery on the tongue when he was just days old, and then the worst part is you got to go in there with your fingers every day, multiple times a day, and reopen the wound and cause your newborn baby harm. So yes, firsthand experience with it, and it's brutal.
You know what? It's really good that you did work on that, because the fact is that if your baby was not going to be able to nurse because of that tongue tie, then so much of his microbiome, his structural and nervous system is totally affected, immunity, right? So it's such a good thing what you did. But what ended up happening was that, I've been eating kimchi my whole life. My mom, all the kimchi recipes have been passed down, but I didn't really understand the health benefits and the science, the kimchiology behind it, until I went back to Korea. For the first time, I go back after I left at 12. I was 50 years old when my son was in his teens, and he wanted me to like, hey, let's go to Korea, where you're from, Mom. I've never been there, and let's go visit. So I said, okay, let's do it. And I get there, and I couldn't believe how many grams and grams of sugar and carbs Korean people ate. Now, when I left, it was all mainly Korean food, because it was in the 70s, mid 70s, and it was American American culture was not integrated yet. Although we had military there, it just wasn't integrated into the regular Korean culture. Well, let me tell you, now every corner you've got the coffee shops and the burger joints and the pizza parlors and the sandwich shops. They're all there as we have it here. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I noticed the most was that the Korean people were not overweight at all. This was about 6 years ago. Oh gosh, around there. Maybe even longer now. I'm just thinking about the time. It's got to be 6 years because I'm 56 now. So 6 years ago was when I went. And so I'm like thinking, what is going on with Korea? Now, I did some research, and their obesity rate is only at 5.8%.
Wow. Back
then, yes. And I knew that, you know what, United States, we're number one, of course. We're the highest number of obese people in the world, and we're, over 34% now. And so I'm going, they're eating the Americanized food, all Western, but why is it that they're not gaining the weight as we do and not suffering? I mean, they were energized, or really athletic. They've got the flat belly, and their skin is amazing. And it just didn't make sense to me. So I was taking a lot of pictures, Ari. My family were taking pictures of all the beautiful places in Korea, wherever we're going, and I became like a foodie stalker, and all I want to do is take pictures of people eating, because that's what they ate: noodles, white rice, tons of desserts and sugars. So it was just blowing my mind, blow. So by the end of the family vacation, I realized that there was actually one major difference between the Korean diet and the American diet. And it was really not in the main dishes that they were eating, but it was in the side dish. And that was kimchi, the ancient fermented, probiotic-rich superfood that they've been eating for thousands of years. And that's what got me into looking in on the science. I became a kimchiologist, literally, overnight. All I did was do research. I mean, there's like thousands, over 1,000 research, really current research coming out from, sure enough, Korea, because that's where all the science is, especially the World Institute of Kimchi. It's a government-run facility of doctors and researchers that only research kimchi. We don't have anything like this. I've never seen anything like it. I've never read up on any type of facility that just works on one food. Mm-hmm. And it was brilliant. And so what I did was I did a lot of research, and I found there's just incredible amounts of science behind kimchi and why the kimchi was so eaten. I mean, of course, Koreans been eating it for like at least 2,000 years. In my lineage alone, in my mother's lineage, which is where I learned how to make kimchi, I'm sure it's at least 2,000 years old, because my mom, and my grandma, I mean, the lineage is deep. And I did the genetic testing, so I know it is deep in my mom's side. Mm-hmm. So that's what I figured, and I decided to implement it. So as soon as I got back, for the last 6 years, I've been implementing the kimchi diet. I put it into all of my patients who've got chronic illnesses, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, mold toxicity, chronic fatigue syndrome, digestive disorders, you name it. I've just implemented it. And what I found was that you have to eat kimchi every day to really make the difference. And over a few weeks, you start to see the shifts. Over 2 months, which is 8 weeks, you really start to see the changes. And that's what I want to talk to you about, is the changes that it can make for every individual, whether you're a child, a baby, or into your elder years. And it will make a difference for you as you eat it daily, kimchi daily.
Yeah, awesome. I want to talk about those differences and what it's doing and some of the science behind it. First, what I want to do is for all the American and European and Australian and wherever Asian listeners all over the world who have no idea what kimchi is. Explain that. So just like real quick summary of what this actually is, because maybe some Americans have seen this before, and it looks like just kind of this mess of weird stuff and reds and greens and other stuff, but they have no idea what's actually in it. So just explain that real quick.
Absolutely. So I thought that you might ask this. So guess what? I'm doing a little show and tell for you, Ari. And the kimchi is the way, it's basically, it's a fermented food. There's many different fermented foods that we are familiar with from all around the world. Yogurt, kefir, we know even beer is fermented, but so is something that is like sauerkraut. Most likely, people will say that kimchi is similar to sauerkraut because it can be cabbage, but there's a lot of different kimchis. Did you know there's over 250 different kimchis out there? So what I'm going to show you are some of the kimchis that I put into my book, The Kimchi Diet. And I'll start out with the first. There's different phases of kimchi that I put into the book because I realized that there's actually different types of kimchi will give you different kinds of results. And the first kimchi that I wrote up about and in the phase 1 is cucumber kimchi. You can't see it very much here, but anyway, cucumber kimchi, you can see maybe, there it is. Can you see that?
Now, yeah, I can. Now, for everybody who's listening, not watching the video, this is a glass jar, like a homemade kind of mason jar thing that looks like a mixture of like red and some greens, just like kind of almost like a paste of red and green stuff. And it looks, I think for the average American, pretty intimidating.
Well, you're absolutely right. Only because it's not similar to anything out there. So what the ancient people have realized was that if they used fermentation, they learned fermentation just by trial and error, using salt, and then specific types of vegetables, which are in here. I can talk about that. And then what you do is you brine the vegetables. So this one being the one that I just showed you right now is cucumber. And cucumber, if you salt it, what the salting, brining action, it's one of them, to me, when you're making anything fermented, Ari, it's really important that you salt it properly and you salt it with the right type of salt. I use sea salt. I like Korean sea salt because I like the taste of the ocean and the sea salt, but you can use kosher sea salt. You can use Celtic sea salt. I would say that Himalayan is my last choice. And of course, table salt is forget it. You don't want to use that. But anyway, when you salt a vegetable, what it's doing is in the process of brining, you're taking out a lot of the water, pulling the water out. But what's most important is that it actually kills the bad bacteria that could be on the vegetable. But then the magic of that salting, brining, improves the lactic acid bacteria growth. Now, lactic acid bacteria growth is the actual, I would say, what really creates the difference between any other food, like regular food that you eat fresh, to fermented food. Fermented means you are growing the lactic acid bacteria, the good probiotics, which is going to help you with your microbiome, the diversity, the inflammation, helping you with building the gut integrity. I say that kimchi is the #1 gut sealant because it is known to improve some of the bacteria that help make the gut barrier and the mucus lining. So when you've got this fermentation action going, and by the way, fermentation in kimchi is only 1 to 2 days. When you make sauerkraut, it can be weeks, 3-4 weeks to make sauerkraut. Kimchi is 1 to 2 days. Really? And you can start eating it right away. Absolutely. And you know, what's interesting, the science shows that there's 3 different types of strains of the genera of different bacteria, 3 of them, that's really, really high in kimchi. It is also similarly in sauerkraut. You see, all of these vegetables, there's a reason why you use different kinds of vegetables, because each vegetable in here actually has its own microbiome. So I always say that if you know, Ari, if you got me some sea salt, garlic, ginger, and then whatever vegetable you want me to make into kimchi, I can do it. We can make this also without any fire. What I mean by that, you don't need to cook anything. So if you want to be in the jungles with me, let's make some kimchi, Ari. And not just that, what's really beautiful about kimchi is that this is a wild ferment. Everyone asks me this all the time. Hey, Doc, what kind of starter do you use? You don't need starter. The starter is naturally in the microbiome of the vegetable. Did you know that ginger has its own microbiome? Garlic has its own.
Yeah, this is actually, I think, a topic worth explaining, like on a little bit more basic level, because I think a lot of people are shocked to find out that the vegetables that they consume are actually teeming with bacteria. I think a lot of people think of the vegetables they eat as, pretty sterile. So just explain that and kind of what kinds of bacteria are on there.
Absolutely. There are hundreds, thousands of bacteria strains on food, hundreds. The reason is because it comes from earth, meaning the soil, and soil, it's not just bacteria. There's yeast, there's molds, viruses, so there's even amoebas and different types of parasites. There are a lot of bugs growing and teeming on food. On your skin, Ari, one square inch, 1 million bugs right here. So do not think that washing your body with soap and washing your vegetables with water is going to get rid of all the bugs. There's a reason why you do want to eat it. And that's because you're going to feed the microbiome. We need fresh foods. We need fresh vegetables. And of course, we want to eat fresh vegetables that are not teeming with pathogenic bacteria. And which one are those? Those are the gram negatives usually. And the gram negatives are Klebsiella, E. coli, the bad ones, Salmonella, Shigella, the ones that cause the Montezuma's revenge, you want to call it, or if you get food poisoning. Those are the bad ones. But when you ferment and you use the brining process and salting it for a specific amount of time, you are killing off the bad ones and you are growing the good ones. That's the reason why ancient times, they started realizing we can preserve vegetables. Way back when, thousands of years, there wasn't such thing as a refrigerator. And in the wintertime, when they would grow vegetables, the vegetables would be packed over with snow, especially in places like Korea. We would have 10 degree, 20 degree below zero. There's all just snow. There's no vegetation whatsoever. So when I was growing up in the wintertime, every October to November, we would do what's called a kimjang. Kimjang is basically the community all comes together. It's such a beautiful act of people coming together, neighbors and your relatives all coming to make a huge amount of kimchi. And what we would do is we would dig a big hole in the earth before the first snow. And we put this earthenware, it's just a ceramic big jar, into the earth before the snow came. And then we would make kimchi. And as soon as it starts to snow, it's our own little refrigeration. And the kimchi would slowly ferment. And we would have that vegetable 4 or 5 months, sometimes 6 months.
Wow.
When it's from winter, from October, November to springtime, even up to May. Wow. Depending on, and we would consistently have preserved vegetables. I mean, that's the way our ancient people have created this amazing magic of fermentation. Now, I think the refrigerator has ruined us in a sense, if you think about it, because we don't eat a lot of fermented foods anymore. We don't use fermentation as a way to preserve food because of the changes of the season. But Korean people and many, many cultures all around the world have their own fermented food from their own country. And I think going back to those ancient practices and using those ancient wisdom really will help fortify that microbiome that they've been doing for thousands of years. And I think that's part of the reason why the health of Korean people have still been able to be sustained much better than America.
Yeah. Now, let's dig into some of the science around the fermentation process and the species of bacteria. So a couple things I want to mention are, one, I have heard something to the effect in a few different places where I've read that there is as many bacteria, there are as many bacteria in a tablespoon of kimchi as there are in an entire bottle of expensive probiotics. first of all, what are your thoughts on that? Do you have any sort of data around quantifying the amount of bacteria in kimchi versus typical probiotics?
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and give you like numbers, because I love numbers, because numbers never lie to you, and the science, and I mean all the research that I've done, I found that the average in 1 gram of kimchi. Now, what's 1 gram? You know what a pill is, right? Let me show you, because I wanted to show you what the size of 1 gram is, and it's about here. This is 1 gram. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so typical, like fairly large capsule of supplements for those listening.
Exactly. A large capsule of supplement, or let's say a soft gel of fish oil. You've seen that, right? About 1 gram. In this 1 gram, you get a minimum of 1 billion CFUs of bacteria. 1 billion. Now, in kimchi,
CFUs are colony
forming units. Exactly. Now, you will read that on every probiotic bottle, every probiotic supplement bottle. What the science shows is that for commercial kimchi, you can have 900 different strains of bacteria, 900 in kimchi.
Wow.
Whereas in a bottle, if you're lucky, you get 12, right? Mm-hmm. Average, you might get 5, 8. And I'm talking about lactobacillus. There's 3 to 4 strains there. Then bifidus bacterium. There's 3 to 4 strains there, right? In kimchi, I'm saying it's 900 to 2,500 strains.
Wow.
That's the science. And it's different studies show this. Commercial, it's lower end. And it might be because in commercial, they use different, like they have, some of them has MSG in it and stuff like that.
You're talking about like the store-bought kimchi versus what you could make at home.
Yes, exactly. So if you look at a tablespoon, I believe a tablespoon, Ari, is about 15 grams, right? 15 grams.
Yeah.
So let's say on the low end, in 1 tablespoon, you've got about, on the low end, 15 grams. I eat myself, I would say over 300 billion CFUs a day.
Wow.
That's because I eat it regularly.
And
I don't eat it once.
Compare that. So a typical 1 gram size probiotic pill is going to be about 1 billion.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's millions. It won't be even 1 billion. Some of them in 1 pill, the ones that you get at the regular health food stores can be, let's say, in the millions to about 5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And they're expensive. Probiotics are very expensive. And then you've got to also look at, is it heat treated or heat resistant? And is it refrigerated? And do you really know if there's that amount bacteria? I mean, there's a lot of controversy for that. Now, I use products, if I'm going to use probiotics, I use them that are higher in number, and it could be up to 50 billion to 100 billion per pack. But I'll tell you what, it costs a lot of money for those. That supplement can be over $100 per bottle,
mm-hmm.
Which is a lot. But I'm telling you, for this, that what I make this is like maybe $5 if even. $5 that will last you this can last me probably about a week.
Basically what you're saying is that glass jar that you're holding up of weird looking red and green stuff is like liquid gold for your intestines.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best because the science, evidence is the loudest voice, isn't it, Ari? Mm-hmm. You and I love talking about like science and what's real, what's really going on. And they are finding bacteria after bacteria. There's 3 main ones that are in kimchi: Leuconostoc, Lactobacillus, and Weissella. It's really interesting, but there's a lot more bacteria. There's Pedicococcus. There's even a type of Escherichia, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there's so many strains.
There's dozens of species that don't exist in any probiotic supplement.
No, and that's why it's gold, because you're creating diversity in your gut. The microbiome diversity is key. That's one of our problems in America. And why? Let's talk about it a little bit. Why? Because those are the things that I want people to understand. You've got to prevent from happening. Number one, we drink tap water. In America and a lot of countries, they use chlorine in our water. And what is chlorine but an antibiotic, antibacterial, antimicrobial? It kills bugs. So we're killing off the good microbiome. Number two, we use antibiotics. If you use one dose of antibiotics, you're wiping out majority of the good bacteria in your gut. Even if you were to take probiotics, it's just not enough, because probiotic is like a drop in the ocean. We've got hundreds and trillions of bacteria in the gut, 5 pounds worth. And when you take antibiotics, you are wiping out a huge amount of that. And it takes often 4-6 months to replenish. And how are you going to replenish with a little bit of probiotics? You just don't. So eating fresh vegetables, getting the good bacteria that are clean, but also supplementing as a side dish every day with probiotics rich, kimchi that's probiotic rich, you're going to replenish it. And if you do it together with antibiotics, it'll be a game changer, because you're not going to have all of the symptomatology and the negative side effects of kimchi, of antibiotics. Why else? We eat a lot of toxins that you're not aware of, pesticides.
So I just want to, real quick, you said something a minute ago that you said if you do it together with antibiotics, kimchi with antibiotics, is that what you meant to say? Or do you mean to say to take the kimchi after a course of antibiotics?
No, I think I recommend you to eat kimchi with antibiotics, meaning like not at the same time. I don't mean that, but let's say that you do.
Like in the case of needing to use antibiotics.
Exactly. You
course.
can eat it in various times. Usually when it comes to antibiotics, they might say one day, depending on what type of antibiotic you get from the doctors, it's once a day or twice a day or 3 times a day. So what I do is I tell people to eat kimchi throughout the day, in between, away from the antibiotic. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is you are replenishing the good bacteria that you're wiping out with the antibiotics, and it will prevent side effects. There is a side effect of antibiotics. A lot of people know, if you're in the health industry, meaning like in the hospitals, it's called C. diff, Clostridium difficile. I don't know if I treat a lot of that in my practice, and I'm known for that. I think because in the last 6 years, I've treated so many with that kind of condition. People, and C. diff is a very difficult bacterial infection secondary to antibiotic use.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get it.
That's one of the ones where they've found pretty good results with the fecal transplants, right?
That is correct. That is correct. And I'm saying, why go that direction when you can go this direction? Mm-hmm. Because you don't need to.
For those listening, in other words, she's using her fingers to point in different directions, but why go up the butt when you can go through the mouth?
Yes, exactly. And let me tell you, this is all bacteria that can bypass. Lactic acid bacteria, Ari, can bypass the acidity and the acid, HCl. Everyone says, well, probiotics, you need special kind that's all encapsulated so that it bypasses the small intestine, the stomach acid, right? That's one of the arguments of probiotics, of why you need special kind. Well, kimchi, like they've done studies that it can go through and it lives without a problem, because kimchi is low in acid. The entire process of making kimchi and fermentation, like the first week, remember I said that there were 3 different bacteria that are really high, the genera, Leuconostoc, Lactobacillus, and Weissella. That's how it's really high. Leuconostoc usually is the king of the hill right in the beginning of the first fermentation process. And very interestingly, about second week, 10 days into it, you end up getting the lactobacillus goes up, especially Lactobacillus plantarum, Lactobacillus sakei. There's many different kinds of strains, but Lactobacillus and Weissella goes up too. And Leuconostoc starts to go down. And then third week, to me, the second week, when the Lactobacillus is higher and the Weissella is higher, that's the kimchi. It's like the sweet spot for kimchi tasting, because it's so delicious. And there's a redness to this kimchi that I'm holding up, and that redness is from the red pepper. But I want you to know, I'm sorry I don't have my white kimchi, but I make white kimchi all the time, and white kimchi is kimchi without any red pepper. Let me show you a white kimchi that I make all the time. What I mean by white kimchi is, I mean white Napa cabbage. This is a white kimchi, but it's water. kimchi. Do you see this? I'm holding up a big jar of liquid. There's radish in here, green onion, garlic, ginger, sea salt, and I brine the radish, and there's probably a red pepper here, one red pepper somewhere. There it is on the bottom. But what this does is this radish water kimchi is super good for diarrhea, constipation.
So you actually drink the liquid in that case?
Oh yes, this is kimchi juice. This is my favorite. Let me tell you a little about kimchi juice and what it can do. I have done some research about sinusitis. You know, chronic sinusitis, rhinitis, runny nose, pain, headache, congestion, really, yellow to green, mucus, postnasal drip, coughing, problems with their eyes. This is a very, very common condition all around. And antibiotic over antibiotic, people can't get rid of it. Well, I'm telling you that the kimchi juice can get rid of it within weeks.
It's lactobacillus sakei or sakai, right?
Exactly. Oh, you know it. Oh my gosh. Good for you for knowing that, because
I was shoving kimchi juice up my nose at one time because I thought I had sinusitis.
Well, what happened?
I thought for several months I thought I had a chronic sinus infection.
Yes.
So I was reading up a lot about that subject, and that's why I stumbled across that. I was eating a lot of kimchi and I was shoving it up my nose, which was not the most pleasant thing in the world. But it turned out actually what was causing my symptoms was actually just a dairy allergy. Or intolerance, which isn't actually quite annoying because I like dairy and I've eaten it my whole life. And up until about a couple of years ago, I would enjoy it fine without any symptoms. And then I guess I ate too much of it because a couple of years ago I developed an intolerance to it. That's the only thing I have an intolerance to. But yes, as soon as I got rid of the dairy, that symptom went away. But I did also shove a lot of kimchi juice up my nose.
Was it red kimchi juice, or was it clear, or was it with non-spicy kimchi?
No, it was definitely the spicy kimchi. I at that time I was not aware that there were non-spicy versions, so that's why it was so unpleasant, is because it had like chili peppers in it.
Oh, that must have hurt, man. That must have hurt. But You know what? At least you tried. But that does help. I've helped a lot of people with sinusitis problems when it's true bacterial sinusitis, right? And even fungal sinusitis. Most often when the study shows that when you have an infection and antibiotics don't work, it's because it's actually a fungal infection. So kimchi is known to knock out fungus and fungi, but you can use that. So like I said, you can use this juice for many, many different reasons. I've even helped people with vaginal infections, streptococcal infections, or strep B infection. A lot of women have it. 25% of women have it, and you can knock that out with kimchi juice.
I want to give one word of warning for anybody using it for vaginal purposes. Do not use the version with chilies. If my experience with my nose is any indication, that's a bad idea.
That's right. You got to make white kimchi or a non-spicy kimchi, and that means completely devoid of all of the red pepper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I want to do two more things before we wrap up. One is, we've alluded to this in many cases, but I would love to just have you give like the full picture of the sales pitch, if you will, for kimchi. Not that you're actually selling kimchi, but you're selling people on the health benefits of kimchi. So tell us exactly what those health benefits are. I know you've mentioned a few of them in passing thus far. And then after that, I want to talk quickly about, the basics of how to actually make it at home.
Yes, that would be great. So, like I said, the evidence is definitely there. The science, kimchi science is every single day, literally, I feel like there's something new out there. And the different areas of health, it starts with cardiovascular. It helps with triglycerides, cholesterol, LDL reduction. It's amazing for metabolic syndrome biomarkers. What does that mean? It helps with your sugar balance, and it will reduce it. And I'm talking about within 4 to 12 weeks, depending on, how bad you've got issues. They've seen it in 4 weeks that if you eat a good amount of kimchi daily, even in 7 days, it starts. You can see changes in your blood sugar level go down. Changes in your cholesterol, LDL, go down. I talked about triglycerides, but metabolic syndrome biomarkers is also fasting insulin and as well as leptin hormones. Those go down. And then there are a lot of human studies and there's a lot of mice studies, animal studies. But both of them, they all confirm the same thing, is that the numbers go down. And then, of course, there was one that literally the aortic streak of plaque was completely minimized by eating kimchi daily. And it's not just the type of eating kimchi daily. If you eat kimchi a certain amount, they've done studies where if you eat higher levels, like I said, I eat probably about a half of a cup to a full cup a day. If you eat higher levels, then the response is going to be even better. And it's anti-inflammatory. So what does that mean? It reduces inflammation in your gut. It reduces the cytokines, which are the immune markers, interleukin 6, interleukin 8, these markers, they are actually found to go down. If the inflammation goes down and it's helping your gut, then it's going to help seal your gut. So leaky gut, IBS, SIBO, totally. And I said earlier, it's like an amazing gut sealant. It really improves the mucus layer. There's a bacteria that one of the studies show with lactobacillus, certain types of lactobacillus, which is really rich in kimchi. It helps the Akkermansia municipala. Anyway, Akkermansia, it's actually a mucus producing, and it really creates a robust mucus lining. And that's key. That mucus lining is important so that you seal up that leaky gut. And if you have less leaky gut, then you have less leaky brain, leaky kidneys, leaky bladder. There's kidneys, leaky, even bladder. So many areas it's going to help. And that inflammation reduction changes then your joint pain, your allergies, your asthma, your headaches, your gut swelling. It by far helps you with good bowel movements. I had a case. She went to the bathroom once a week. Once a week, she had a bowel movement. And it was always like dry and, in little rabbit pellets. And I told her, you've got to eat some kimchi. She went to the health food store. She didn't make it, but you can get it at the health food store. And she ate it. Within a day of eating kimchi, she had a good bowel movement. And she's been having it every day since. This is a game changer for people. Game changer. And for me, it's like a universal superfood. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to make and eat, and of course to eat in different various types of food. You can eat it with a taco, and I put it chop it up and put on top. You can have it on top of an omelet. I even have it with different types of I'm a big on bolognese pasta, of course gluten-free. In my book, I talk all about reducing the inflammatory foods. And once in a while, I just have a gluten-free pasta when I go out. But sure enough, when I go home, I eat some kimchi to offset what I've eaten. Now, I really believe the reason why Koreans can eat a ton, and I'm not saying that go eat kimchi so you can eat the sugar. I don't mean that. But
there goes my Friday night plans, because I was going to go out and binge on pizza and ice cream tonight and burgers and French fries and then follow it with some kimchi. But I guess now.
Yes, exactly. What I'm just saying is that I believe the reason why Koreans can eat that huge amount of carbs, and I mean hundreds and hundreds of grams per sitting, per meal, and noodle dishes just galore, because they eat kimchi with it at every meal. They eat kimchi with pizza. They eat kimchi with burgers. It's always in their lives. And so the bacteria, and when you've got such a rich, robust microbiome, it's eating and digesting the carbs for you, because they need to eat too, right? Mm-hmm. They need to eat.
You know what's kind of cool here, I was thinking as you were talking about all this is, kind of the melding of some Eastern food and medicinal traditions with Western medicine, and Western, also a lot of the research is coming out of Korea and, some other countries in that region. But modern kind of Western medicine as an approach to study things. is that if you were to have this conversation, if you were to do an interview 100 years ago or even 50 years ago on the benefits of kimchi and say, hey, it's great for your heart and your brain and your gut and all these different things and your mitochondria and all these kinds of claims, it would seem like snake oil. It would seem like, yeah, right, this nonsense from Korea, can't possibly be doing all these different things to all these different systems of the body. But we now know, and especially in the last 20 years, there's research showing there's a gut-brain axis. We know that what goes on in our gut directly impacts neurotransmitters in our brain and the blood-brain barrier. We know that what goes on in the gut impacts blood sugar regulation, impacts hormones, and there's a gut mitochondria axis. It impacts inflammation and immune function. We know that it directly impacts on some of the key movers and shakers, systems of our body that control our health. So you can now put the pieces together and you see that this simple intervention of this traditional food from Korea, that once you understand that it's rich in hundreds of different species of bacteria, which 100 years ago or 200 years ago, they probably had no clue about. They just knew it was good for you. But you put all that knowledge together and now you really understand, wow, this is a superfood. We have all these very clear mechanisms of how it can modulate different systems of our body. And we also have the research showing that it does actually benefit, these different systems of the body. It's not actually just theory anymore, but a lot of this stuff is already proven. And I would imagine over the next 10 years, many more studies will prove many more benefits. So I think it's just a remarkable thing. And I'm excited that you're here to share all this wisdom with my audience. On a final note, I would love to have you just describe kind of a simple process for how to make it. And you don't have to get too detailed here, but kind of just the general gist of how one can make this at home, because there's probably a lot of people listening to this thinking, oh, that's probably really time consuming and complex to make this. And I don't want to have to learn a whole new complex recipe and this weird fermentation thing. And I've never done fermentation before. So can you just break it down really simply for people?
Oh, absolutely. Just know this is that it is super easy. You don't, like I said, I make kimchi often outside. It can be anywhere. What you need are just the basics. You need a vegetable. And usually I like the crunchy kind of veggies. Cabbage works, radish works, and of course, cucumber, things like that. And you brine it, and brining is just, you sprinkle salt on it, and that's it. And you watch the water come out. And when the water comes out, and usually you're just going to let it sit there for about an hour to 2 hours, depending on the type of vegetable. Then you make the kimchi paste, and you can make it with red pepper or not. And with the kimchi paste, you get the garlic, you get the ginger. You can use, to me, you could use fish sauce. Everyone's different. If you don't want to do seafood, you want to be completely 100% vegan. It's super easy to do that. That's totally fine. And you cut up the actual mixture of, and you want to use also some type of fruit. I like apple or pear, and I usually grate it because I like the liquid, because you want a little bit of liquid. And that's the food for the bacteria. Bacteria needs to eat food. Otherwise, it won't grow very well. And then, and you can add other little types of other herbs if you want, but that's pretty much basically it. And you can use a little bit of red radish and cut that up. That's your paste. So whatever you've brined, you mix it into that paste, and then you put it in a jar. That's it. That's as easy as it is. So again, you brine for a little while, you make the paste, you mix it together with the brine veggie, and then you jar it. And you just sit there for about a day or two. At 24 hours, you taste it. And you say, it needs a little bit more tang. Then you let it sit out a little longer. Now, it needs to sit out in just regular room temperature, and you just watch it. What's wonderful is the fermentation creates a lot of bubbles. And that's kind of cool, because when you eat, right, the first time you've opened it up and you eat your kimchi, there's like a little bubbliness on your tongue, and it's very effervescent. It's really yummy, and you'll notice that there's a lot of bubbles because sometimes it rises, the vegetable rises, but you just open it and push it back down, the veggie down below the water, and that's all you've got. Fermentation, everyone thinks, oh my God, it's such a big ordeal. It's not. This is super, super easy, and I can help you make it anytime. And Ari, I want to make sure that you make it too.
Yeah, I'm going to, well, I was going to say I'm going to make it, but my wife's a chef, so
Let her make it.
I'm going to have her make it. She's made it a bunch of times before.
Oh,
We
good.
also have we have a newborn baby, so she's taking care of the baby at the moment, so I'm not about to put any more demands on her.
That makes sense. But this
So
is,
maybe I'll make it then. I take it back.
it's so easy. Try it. Try it. You know, it's basically kimchi is by eating kimchi every day. It's really health by addition. I'm not asking people to remove anything, you know, really just by adding kimchi into your life, it'll make a difference. You can be paleo. I don't know what type of diet you like, paleo, Mediterranean, it can be keto, vegan, whatever it is. Do what works for you. I'm just asking just to add kimchi daily, and that's going to make a big difference into your life and your future generations. You know, I tell a lot of my female patients who want to get pregnant, start eating kimchi now, because we're going to change your microbiome in your vagina. And that makes a huge difference when your baby comes out and gets its first inoculation coming into this world. It's already has the defenses ready to help, you know, and I think that's truly what you want to do is change the future generations, because we need that. We need that to, you know, alter the direction of modern disease.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be clear. I actually am a huge advocate of this. I've read your book. I've also been reading the research on this for several years. We eat kimchi on a daily basis, or very close to daily basis. And it's a mix. Sometimes she's in the past, she's done it at home. Lately, we're doing more store-bought stuff. But I think you've just given me a kick in the butt to start making it at home again. In the sense that you get even more bacterial diversity with the home, the homemade stuff rather than the store-bought stuff. But for anybody who feels too intimidated, or you just hate making stuff at home, you can also get this in health food stores. Just make sure you obviously get the raw stuff. You don't want to get pasteurized or any of that stuff. Finally, I highly recommend, if this topic has been interesting to you, that you go on Amazon and get Dr. Bennett's book, The Kimchi Diet. And it will go into many more details, and you will also get lots of specific recipes for making different variations of kimchi, the kimchi juice she mentioned, as well as some other good stuff in there, and you know, the details on the science and the health benefits of kimchi. Dr. Susanne, do you want to direct anybody to your site, or any specific freebie or anything like that?
Oh gosh, yes. You know, you mentioned about the kimchi juice, the tongchimi, the liquid. If you go to the Facebook group, I have a Facebook group. Everyone's welcome who wants to learn more about kimchi. Everyone goes in there and we show our kimchi creations, and there's a video there on how to make it there. But in the book, I'll also give you a link on how to get there. But for your people who are interested, I have a guidebook, and it's called The Magic of Kimchi, the Universal Superfood. And you can get a link from us there and there's the first phase on recipe which is a cucumber kimchi. You get a recipe there already on why you want to make cucumber kimchi first, because it is a non-FODMAP. It has a lot to do with the FODMAP, because a lot of us are used to finding that if you go eat kimchi at a restaurant, let's say, it's usually Napa cabbage, but that's the last phase, the fourth phase, because Napa cabbage can give you a little gas and bloating. So there's a definite sequence, and that's what I discovered, you know, working with so many people in my practice and case studies, which kimchi comes first. But anyway, you know, the guidebook will give you all kinds of information.
You know what? I just realized there's one more quick question that I have for you that I forgot to ask, which is, people with histamine intolerance, people who react to fermented foods, do you have any thoughts on whether should they just avoid kimchi, or do you have any process for introducing it to them without ill effects?
I will tell you that many of my histamine sensitive patients have had no problems with kimchi if they start eating the cucumber kimchi. What's very interesting is that the studies and the scientific studies, because I was concerned, a lot of my patients are histamine, you know, mast cell problems and all that. And I was concerned about that. So I did more research on that. And I wrote about it in the book. They are finding that actually kimchi, because of the ingredients in it, reduces histamine. It doesn't trigger it. And I really believe that people who said that they've eaten kimchi and they get problems with it, it's because, number one, they've had Napa cabbage. And Napa cabbage is gas producing more so than, let's say, cucumber or bok choy kimchi. And that Napa cabbage can be, and when you're already, you've got a dysbiosis going on, Ari, and you put the good stuff in, you're going to have a little bit of a war. There's going to be a challenge there, right? And when there's a little bit of challenge between the good bugs and the bad bugs, because in kimchi, it is antimicrobial. It will kill the bad bugs. So if you've got dysbiosis or SIBO, you're not going to feel a great deal of comfort right away. It'll take a few days. That's why I always recommend 1 tablespoon only in the beginning. Don't eat a lot because you're so overzealous. I want to get, change quickly. No, this is all about little inoculation, seeding it little by little. And if you do that, you'll have a much gradual change, and you'll have less inflammatory, not less inflammation, but less aggravation in the beginning. And then it'll start to smooth out. It will smooth out. And you got to be consistent. 1 tablespoon, and maybe you're going to eat 1 tablespoon for 1 to 2 weeks. And then I tell and I have what's called the Kimchi Detox program. I have a lot of students now all around the world, including Uganda and Croatia. Oh my God, I love my students. And they are all making the kimchi through my Kimchi Detox program. It's an online video program that I created for easy kimchi making. But anyway.
This is part of South Korea's colonization of the entire world.
Yes.
Is you spreading the kimchi diet even to Africa and Europe and beyond.
Totally, in every continent, because that's, what, I know that we are all suffering everywhere. We are everywhere, from all kinds of diseases and all the modern stuff that is affecting the heart and the blood pressure, the neurological issues to gut issues. You name it, we are all suffering from it. So I want to globalize kimchi. Yeah. I want everyone to get some kimchi abs.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Susanne, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with my audience. Again, everybody, you can get her book on Amazon. It's called The Kimchi Diet. And your Facebook group, I forgot the name of it. Where can people find that?
Oh, you just go to Facebook and look up Kimchi Diet. Kimchi Diet.
Easy enough.
Yes.
Awesome. Dr. Susanne, thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Ari. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.
Hey there, this is Ari again. One more quick thing before you go. Just make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Energy Blueprint, and also make sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, whether that's iTunes or Stitcher or anything else. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview, and I will see you again next week.